It's Halloween, and you're getting ready for some good old-fashioned trick-or-treating. Your mom stoops and she adjusts your little cape because you are, of course, going as a very fearsome vampire, and says, "Okay, but let me check your candy when you get home, okay? I want to make sure it's safe before you eat it. Don't want the candy man to get you." You nod and you go about your day, running around, collecting candy, and just having some good old mischief. You resist the urge to toss a candy in your mouth, and while watching the evening news with your mom, she goes through your candy, tossing away ones that look like they might have been tampered with, and keeping ones for you later. But why? Who is the candy man? What happened that made families hyper aware of their children's candy at Halloween? Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Jax, and this is Morbidly Macabre, the show where I talk about morbid history, true crime, cryptids, and other spooky topics that might catch my interest. Today, we're talking about the Candyman murder, a tragic event that still haunts families with children to this day, but for a good reason. If you like today's video, please hit that like button, and if you want to see more from me, please consider hitting the subscribe button as we are 19 subscribers away from 100. I stream over on Twitch 5 to 6 days a week at Jax Marie Gaming, or as my schedule allows because I do work full time, and every now and then I do a research stream for Morbidly Macabre, so keep an eye out for that. We had a lot of fun at the last one. Alright, let's get into the Candyman. Ronald Clark O'Brien lived in Houston, Texas with his family. He lived with his wife, Daneen, his two young children, Timothy, who was 8, and Elizabeth, who was 5. He was an optician, a church deacon, he sang in the choir, and he ran a bus program. On the outside, he was the average family man. However, he was having a really hard time. He was fired from over 21 jobs in the last 10 years for fraud or negligence. His salary from his optician's job barely covered rent, food, and the basic bills, and he was about to get fired again. He was in debt over $100,000 and was very under the water. I would assume his wife knew about their financial straits, but from what I saw in the court records, it seems like she was not well informed of what was going on because he seemed to be very sneaky. In the court papers in January of 1974, he joined a club that entitled him to a small amount of life insurance for his family, about $10,000 per person. His wife protested this change because she didn't believe that the children needed life insurance. It would be expensive, it's unnecessary, and why are we insuring our kids? They're 8 and they're 5, neither of them are sick. In either September or October, he took out additional policies on his children without telling his wife and against the advice of his insurance broker. Around this time in August, he was trying to get his employer to obtain cyanide for cleaning gold glasses. He was also talking to a friend named Bobby Terry, who worked in a chemical company. They discussed the various types of cyanide and how to obtain cyanide, what the lethal dose of cyanide would be to a person. O'Brien was talking to Terry under the assumption that O'Brien was taking a class and that his professor wasn't very knowledgeable or polished on the uses and types of cyanide, so he had an academic interest in how much cyanide it would take to kill a person. Before the unfortunate event that happened, in October of 1974, O'Brien was having discussions with a friend of his about buying new homes, but told his friend, "Just don't tell my wife we're talking about this. I don't want her to know yet. We're going to be coming into some money soon." He also told one of his loan companies that he would be coming into a large amount of money, and he wanted to extend the arrearage on his loan from when it was due, which I believe was in October, to January. He also told his coworker that he was quitting his job in November due to this large amount of money. His wife testified that she knew nothing. She didn't know where the money was coming from. She didn't know he was quitting. She didn't know about them extending the arrearages. And before we get into what happened, let's just sum it up. Ronald Clark O'Brien, a churchman, a family man, and husband, was in such massive debt and clawing for a quick way out. And unfortunately for his children, they were his way out. On Halloween night, he took his family to his friend's house for dinner before they went trick-or-treating. This friend, Jimmy Bates, is the friend that he actually talked to about buying homes and told that he would be coming into a huge amount of money. By the end of the dinner, it was raining, so their trick-or-treating was limited to about a 2-block radius. O'Brien accompanied the children to the door, and Bates would wait on the sidewalk. At one of the homes, there was no one home, and the children, a little disappointed, but not really, there's still more candy, ran off to the next house. But O'Brien managed to find large pixie sticks, those really long ones that are like a foot. Each child, including the 2 Bates children, got a pixie stick, so 4 pixie sticks in total. An additional 5th child received a pixie stick when he went trick-or-treating at the Bates home, and they said, "Oh, okay, here's a piece of candy." They finished their evening, went home, and O'Brien got the children ready for bed, while Daneen went to another friend's house for a visit. Timothy, the 8-year-old son, decided that he wanted some candy before bed, and his father obliged and insisted that he had his pixie stick, the one that he found at that home earlier. If you don't know what a giant pixie stick is, it's basically a large straw that's sealed by heat on both sides that's full of a flavored and dyed sugar. It's usually very sweet. Timothy, with the help from his father, took 2 gulps of the sugary treat and said that it tasted really bad and it was really bitter. His father gave him some Kool-Aid to wash down the flavor and sent Timothy to bed. Within minutes, Timothy started vomiting and he was convulsing, and his father called for an ambulance to take him to a nearby hospital. He died within the hour of eating the pixie stick. O'Brien could not keep his story straight on the origins of this pixie stick and said that the home of Courtney Melvin, the home that they didn't answer the door at, was where he got the giant candy. In fact, Courtney himself, the man of the house, gave him the candy, but Courtney was at work. He has over 200 witnesses that he was at work. Courtney's wife passed out candy, but they ran out early and they never saw the family come to the door. The pixie sticks were collected and turned over to a medical examiner who ruled Timothy's cause of death as cyanide poisoning. His blood level was at 0.4 milligrams. The fatal dose for cyanide is between 0.2 and 0.3 milligrams. The manufacturer of the pixie sticks pointed out that while one side of the pixie sticks that they collected was heat sealed, the other side was sealed with the staple, which indicated that they were tampered with. And in the 4 pixie sticks that were not consumed, the first 2 inches of the sugar was testing positive for cyanide, and in Timothy's pixie stick, the top 4 inches were consumed, meaning Timothy took the entire dose of cyanide that was in that pixie stick. While O'Brien attempted to hide what he had done, the day after his son's death, he requested 6 copies of the death certificates for all of the insurance policies he had. He gave a eulogy at his son's funeral and did everything he could to present the mourning father facade that he was presenting. But during this time, the police were getting very suspicious of him. They were piecing everything together: the debt, his job history, the life insurance policies, and the fact that he went into a store to inquire about purchasing a small amount of cyanide. But in that store, the smallest amount of cyanide you can purchase was 5 pounds, and he did not need that much. He was arrested 5 days after his son's death on 1 count of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder, and he was found guilty and sentenced to death. On March 31st, 1984, almost 10 years after the murder of his son, he was executed by lethal injection. The people who stood outside of the prison during his execution were yelling "trick or treat" and showering the people that protest the death penalty with candy. His wife divorced him shortly after his conviction and remarried her husband, eventually adopting Elizabeth as his own daughter. And he was so hated by the others on death row in the prison that he was in that they actually were allowed to have a party to celebrate his execution. He maintained his innocence until the end, but I think we all know he did it. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today. I really appreciate that you took the time today to watch this video. If you liked today's video, please hit that like button and subscribe. If you liked today's video, please consider hitting that like button, and if you want to see more from me, please hit that subscribe button down below. Again, I stream over on Twitch 5 to 6 days a week, or as my schedule allows, at Jax Marie Gaming, and thank you once again for joining me. As always, stay curious. Goodbye.